Hello, I am continuing with the reading of Esoteric Psychology, I always do that, by Alice A. Bailey. I'm really looking forward to this little section. It's only about 3 pages, but to do it justice, I'm probably going to have to take another hour. Hopefully I don't, but it's just it's a powerful definition. I'm looking forward to reading and exploring and studying and sharing this one. This section is chapter 2, certain questions and their answers. We're answering the question of what is the soul? Can it be defined? And then Alice Bailey provides 4 actual definitions of the soul. And this definition is that the soul is the principle of intelligence. So it's really interesting, a section here, and the work of the disciple, the initiate, the monad, the person, the being that is endeavoring to live as the soul should know what the soul is, how it is defined. So this is a good section, again, to pay close attention to. It's one of the most interesting definitions right here so far for me. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So definition 2, what is the soul? Can it be defined? This is the second definition. The soul can be regarded as the principle of intelligence, an intelligence whose characteristics are mind and mental awareness, which in turn demonstrate as the power to analyze, to discriminate, to separate, and to distinguish, to choose or to reject, with all the implications conveyed in these terms. As long as man is identified with the appearance, these aspects of the mental principle produce in him the great heresy of separateness. So right from the beginning, this is a powerful just little paragraph about what the soul is. It's saying that it's our ability to create this whole sensation of separateness, and it calls it the heresy. So that's the big thing that's opposing to the major dominant belief, right? So if we're supposed to believe that all is one, all is self, the monad, that's where we're going. But right now, the soul has stepped itself down into this realm of duality, of separation. And so that's what it's capable of doing. Per this definition, is it's able to separate and distinguish, to choose and reject, and do all of these things that really are contrary to what is truth, as we come from and as we are going to know. I hope I'm not overcomplicating it as I try to explain it. But its power is in the intelligence that it's able to discern and to separate and to pick and choose and all these things. But it's also the great deception, right? Because it's not true. But it's an ability that it has. It's a characteristic of the soul to contain mind and mental awareness that is able to perceive this reality. And what it does with that is it identifies with the appearances of this reality. And that's what creates this illusion of separateness. It is the appearance of the form nature that glamours him and completely deludes him. He regards himself as the form, and then proceeds from a realization of himself as the material form, and has identified with the outer appearance, to a realization of himself as an insatiable desire. So the whole idea here is that the soul steps itself down from consciousness of the I am. It says in here earlier on in, I think, chapter 1, an amazing quote from the Bhagavad Gita where it says that the universe fragments itself out to pervade, or God fragments itself out to pervade every single piece of everything in the universe and still remains as God, as one. So the one can separate into the many and still remain as one. And so this consciousness that stepped itself down in order to perceive a separation had to segment itself off, to separate itself from that all-knowingness, whatever. But in doing that, you run the risk of the glamour, right? And I talked about this in that last video I posted, the dream work example, where I came to that message, that actual summarizing message that I got from that, which is about to be aware of the glamours of this reality. It's the illusion of something that it isn't. And this is so important right now because so much of our attention is being pulled outward to look at the societal events that are going on and to perceive that as what is, and to get consumed with this. And it can create fear, it can create uncertainty, it can create doubt, it creates negativity, certainly. And it is really happening. So there's those people that will say, oh, no, you can't say that this isn't real. This is happening. People are dying, right? But we all, life and death, it's all a part of this. And so the conscious being, which gets to have that different association with life and death as one of the many blessings of having consciousness and that understanding, is that you can pull yourself back from this attempt to direct our focus, which then creates our reality. It creates this outward appearance that's a glamour because it is not the truth. It's the great heresy of separateness, which means that we're helpless in it all. When you recall your consciousness, you can regain control and understand that you are a creator. So you can recreate and reshape from this place. It's malleable, right? You can mold it and turn it into what you want. From that state of helplessness, it's very hard to understand how that could even be possible. But from a state of understanding the glamour and returning to the one who separated itself into all of these things, you can pull in the reins. And instead of being pulled to focus outward and think that this is all there is, you understand those great axioms like this too shall pass. There will be a time after this. And what is coming? So the big picture, right? What is coming out of this? Why is everything being so uncertain and unstable right now? Where are we going? And that's what the career of the monad is, right? So first we understand that dual nature that we possess, and we're getting back into that ability to live as the soul. And the soul is that intelligent force. And then you're stepping that consciousness back up so that you can create from within the dream, awaken from within the dream. That's consciousness. Man, this is going to be long. I'm sorry. I'm already doing it. So it is the appearance of the form nature that glamours him and completely deludes him. He regards himself as the form. When we regard ourselves as this body, as this physicality, as this experience, he regards himself as the form and then proceeds from a realization of himself as the material form. So this is all you know. So then you live as that thing, that unawakened, unconscious being, because that was what we're supposed to do, right? We're stepping down consciousness in order to live out this experience. That's step one, right? To forget your full self. And in that forgetfulness, you then believe in the dream, right? You believe in the illusion. You believe in the appearances. So you become deluded. That's where we are. That's where many are right now. And as you then proceed from that realization of yourself as a material form, you identify with the outer appearance to a realization of yourself as an insatiable desire. So then to understand anything greater than that, to even grasp the full picture, the big picture, to understand that there could be some light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, to all of the tragedy and what's going on. It's an insatiable desire. To know who you are is an insatiable desire. To understand and answer big questions, it's insatiable. You can never get that. That's impossible. But that's not true. That's part of the glamour. This separation that they've created so masterfully is almost convincing that you can't figure it out. It's almost so convincing that you believe that there's no answers. But really, like all that stuff, like cliche, the answers are inside you. They are, because you just have to recollect yourself. All those individuated parts, you recollect them back into the one, which is what consciousness in this work is trying to get us to help us to do. First, to live as the soul. What is the soul? The soul is the principle of intelligence that separated itself down into these characteristics. We did that part. Now we've identified too much with the outside world. So now we're aware of that. That creates an awareness of our duality. So now we rein it back in by doing what comes next. So I'm sorry, this is really terrible so far, but I hope you're following. I'm chatty. They say, depending on where you're sitting at on your throne in the astrology world. There's a full moon tomorrow. It's in Cancer in the Western astrology camp, and then I say on your throne because in your crown, where you're living from right now. So on the Western side, it's a full moon in Cancer, and on sidereal Vedic astrology, it's a full moon in Gemini, apparently, which I find very interesting. How can it be both? And I was thinking about that too. So that philosophy and all those sayings, this and that are true. And you just wonder, how can there be two systems? How can we be in both signs simultaneously? That's what everything is, right? It's to be the small and to be the large, to be this and to be that, to be all things. So of course we can be in two different places at once, astrologically. And I would say I'm playing with the idea that the higher self and lower self are the Western and the Vedic. And so in the Western full moon, in Cancer, it's very emotional sign, dealing with family and family matters and nurturing and emotions and all that stuff, and really going into those depths. And if you're purging all of that stuff, which the full moon energy can conjure up a lot of, the wounding there, that could be what you're working through. And then on the Vedic side, it's a full moon in Gemini. And Gemini, like I started this with, is a very conversational sign. It's really chatty. And so that energy is all about exploring and communicating and articulating all this stuff and connections. And the sign is the twins. So you're connecting within yourself with your twin, the inner masculine and feminine, to become whole. And so that's this whole other thing that's going on. And so the energy of both of those moons, even in themselves, and how that energy is impacting you is pretty interesting and pretty powerful. But it's also why I can't stop talking, maybe. I'm going to try, though. I'm going to try. All right, continuing on. He then becomes identified with the desire body, with his appetites, good and bad, and considers himself as one with his moods, his feelings, his longings, whether they ray out in the direction of the material world or inward toward the world of thought or the kingdom of the soul. I'll read that again from a little bit further up. So this is, again, it's talking about, let me just read the whole thing over. I'm going to try to not interrupt it. This is powerful again. As long as man is identified with the appearance, these aspects of the mental principle produce in him the great heresy of separateness. It is the appearance of the form nature that glamours him and completely deludes him. He regards himself as the form, and then proceeds from a realization of himself as the material form, and as identified with the outer appearance, to a realization of himself as an insatiable desire. He then becomes identified with his desire body, with his appetites, good and bad, and considers himself as one with his moods, his feelings, his longings, whether they ray out in the direction of the material world or inward toward the world of thought or the kingdom of the soul. He is torn by a sense of duality. Later, he becomes identified with still another of the appearances, with the mind, body, or nature. Thoughts become to him so tangible that he is swayed, turned, and influenced by them, and to the world of material appearances, and to the world of the great illusion is added the world of thought forms. He is then subjected to a triple illusion, and he, the conscious life behind the illusion, begins to unify the forms into one coordinated whole in order to better control them. Wow, right? So to sum that up, the three ways that we allow ourselves to be controlled by the illusion, by the Maya, by this appearances of the outward world, is by first identifying ourselves with our appearance, with form, the material world. And then by identifying ourselves with our thoughts, our feelings, our moods, our appetites, our desires, all of this stuff that the full moon and all that energy dredges up, right? So when you get really emotional and you get really triggered and you identify yourself as that, and you're like, man, I'm really depressed, or man, I'm really sad, or I'm really angry, or whatever it is. And then the third way is that We then identify as the mind, body, or nature, which is the thoughts, and then we know that our thoughts create our reality. So that triple nature of the little triple thread that creates, it's how we create. So we step down our consciousness from being the creator to being this thing that's so unconscious of our ability to create our reality that we fall for the triple illusion of separateness, which is that we are this body, that we are our thoughts, and we are our feelings, or that we are our feelings, and then we think, unconsciously, and then that triple creates the recipe to then create what we outpicture around us. And then it becomes so real to us that we don't see a way out, which is what I was ranting about in the beginning, where everything outside seems to be so concrete and but it's not. Just like I say, nothing is solid if you break everything down to its smallest parts. So why wouldn't we think that we can move and maneuver through these things? It's because there is a lock and key placed on our creator forces. So the soul, living as the soul, unlocks our ability to perceive that we are the creator. And so when you step back up from that illusion and put ourselves back together, which is the career of the monad, you recognize that duality and you kind of teeter between it for a while and you struggle between it, and then you move on to the path of the disciple, which it's going to talk about herein. But speaking back really quickly on that idea of identifying with your moods and your feelings right now, something that I did because I was really doing this is heavy energy right now. And so I had to try and get myself out of a funk recently. And when I do that, one of the things, because I really identify with music, a lot of people do, because sound is very powerful. So, and I create a playlist. And so I create a playlist to deliberately put myself through a sequence of moods. I would start probably with like wherever I'm starting from, if I'm feeling pain or an ache or some sort of lack, one of these dense emotions, to start from there. And ideally, it would be best to do it with more like an instrumental playlist, or songs that aren't, mainstream, too much talking and words, because those have their own little spells that they're casting in it. But, if you can play with it and not get too caught up in that, it depends on what level of magician you are, right? So an instrumental or some classical music or some EDM. There's a channel Proximity on here where I just like, even if you just I don't know if you're into that music, it just takes you on an experience. So anyways, the point is I create a playlist that takes me through these emotions, starting with where I'm at and then moving up that vibrational scale to something that's really elevated. And I just feel myself as I listen to it. Maybe put 12 songs together. I have one that I just did recently. I put it on here. It's a playlist called Free Yourself, I believe. And to then just listen to that and then feel yourself going through those actual emotions as you go through it. And it doesn't even have to always start low. You could start high and just be like, I want to create an experience for myself, my emotions, because I understand that I create my emotions. And if I'm not creating my emotions, I'm receiving my emotions that are then triggering my thoughts, that are then shaping my reality. So I've surrendered my creator forces, right, in that process. So it's like an act of consciously shifting into a creator mode, putting yourself through a series of emotions where the end goal is good, right, higher vibrations, and you're just feeling that. And then you just analyze how you just took yourself to this place, emotionally, mentally, physically. If you move and you dance with it, it's great. But then also another easy thing I was saying about that channel Proximity, God, I'm so chatty, is I just like to sometimes watch the DJs. If we put on, they have right now, because there's all these stay-at-home DJs, and so some of their videos are them just mixing, and you just see them and they're just like doing it, and because they're creating that experience for you too. And EDM music has a lot of that build up. That's a whole part of it. It's like the slow down and then the build up, and that's an emotional experience. It's like this. Okay, you'll just check it out if you're into it. And it's just really cool to watch them delivering that, because I think about them as being the creator of that same experience that I, mimic when I create a specific playlist as well. So that's just something that you can do as a tactic to try and regain control of your emotional plane, because you're trying to break out of the illusion, right? The illusion of what is outside, break it up by doing whatever you can, endeavoring to live as the soul. And the soul is what we're learning here. And so, continuing on, if you are not doing that, again, it's saying you're subjected to a triple illusion, where your conscious life behind the illusion begins to unify the forms into one coordinated whole in order to better control them. It didn't make sense to me, so I didn't read it right. So let's see. Thoughts to him. So that's the person who is torn by a sense of their learning of their dual nature and being caught in between. Your thoughts become so tangible that he is swayed, turned, and influenced by them, and to the world of material appearances, and to the world of great illusion is added the world of thought forms. He is then subjected to a triple illusion, and he, the conscious life behind the illusion, begins to unify the forms into one coordinated whole in order to better control them. Thus, the personality of the soul makes its appearance. The mix of all your thoughts and feelings, your desires, good and bad, all of your stuff, and then your thoughts, that creates your personality, right? And that creates the appearance, what you appear to be, and then how you move through the realm. He stands then on the verge of the probationary path. He enters the world of quality and of value. So once you recognize this, and we're working our way back up the consciousness scale, you stand on the verge of the probationary path. He enters the world of quality and of value and begins to discover the nature of the soul and to shift the emphasis from the appearance to the quality of the life which has produced it. So again, that's what I was talking about, pulling out from where they're telling you to look and moving inward. And then you see, instead of them creating how I feel and what I perceive and what I experience, I'm going to regain that control and understand that I have surrendered that creator ability. And now I want to get back into myself, inside of my body, present with me and my emotions and what I'm feeling, and understand that that triplicity that creates the illusion is also that triplicity that can create my escape from it, right? Reality. And so that's the path of the probationary disciple, what this is all about, right? You can then become more aware of the life force within you that creates and produces the reality. This identification of the quality with the appearance grows steadily upon the path until the fusion of quality and appearance, of energy and that which it energizes, is so perfect that appearance no longer veils the reality, and the soul is now the dominant factor. This identification of the quality of the appearance grows steadily upon the path until the fusion of quality and appearance, of energy and that which it energizes, is so perfect that appearance no longer veils the reality, and the soul is now the dominant factor. Consciousness is now identified with itself, or with its ray, and not with its phenomenal appearance. Later, the soul itself is superseded by the monad, and that monad becomes, in verity or in truth, embodied purpose. And so the monad, again, I talk about it in all the other videos, is, well, basically it's supposed to be the one thing which is indivisible. So it's not any mix of how I describe it the best or understanding is when you embody all the signs of the zodiac, because the zodiac breaks down all the different character traits of what, an individual can be, from Aries all the way around to Pisces, right? And what each of those zodiac signs and the traits and the positive and negative aspects, when you embody all of that and you become the Christed one, the Christed consciousness, illuminate, an illuminate, or an enlightened being, you were the monad. So that's the career of the monad. What we're all moving towards is that realization back upwards to consciousness of our oneness, but from down here, from this realm, from the dream. It's to awake within the dream, so then you can move some stuff around. So anyways, you become then embodied purpose. So now you can understand who you are. You understand yourself, the soul, the capital S, as they say. The soul has a purpose, or the monad has a purpose. The soul broke down, the consciousness. When you break back up to the monad, then you become you have an embodied purpose. You can be aware of that and act accordingly. The process can be expressed by a very simple symbology as follows. And this is not simple at all. There's like a series of, I always try to see there on the left, the unevolved man, the disciple, the initiate. There's just, it's described with O's and dots. But what it's getting at is basically our level of awareness, or our level of consciousness. The unevolved man is unaware of its separation as the appearance, as the quality, and the life, which in previous chapters it explains that your appearance is the form, your life is the life force, it's like the God force, what spirit, what mixes with matter, spirit and matter, the Father and Son give birth to the life, the quality. This is getting so confusing, I'm so sorry. I'll just read. The process can be expressed by a very simple symbology as follows. O.O.O or O.O O. I'm just going to skip that. Thus portraying the separateness of these three aspects. The union then of the aspects of appearance, quality, purpose, or life results in an abstraction from the appearance and therefore the end of phenomenal existence. Ponder on the simple arrangement of these signs, for they portray your life in progress. And here it is. The unevolved man is just completely unaware of appearance, quality, and life, the father, the mother, and what itself is. It just doesn't know, does not compute. The disciple is aware of appearance and quality. I am this body, but I'm also the force that expresses itself because I'm animated by, life. And so the disciple is more aware of appearance, quality, and then it has the ... life. So you don't know that God force or that unity consciousness just yet, but you are aware of the dual nature. And the initiate, it moves on to being less aware of the appearance, absolved of that false self, the personality and the ego consciousness, and is more aware of quality, which is what it intends to emanate, and the life force that allows it to do so, the energy and that which it energizes. And then finally, as the monad, it's all encompassed within the circle of infinity. You are everything. I am the appearance, I am the quality and the life. I am that which pervades the whole universe, but still is itself. Whew. I hope that makes sense. This is true of the human being, of the Christ in incarnation. It is equally true of the cosmic Christ, of God incarnate in the solar system. And it's also interesting to think about the solar system, soul, the sun, soul, the solar system. So the solar system is also going through this whole same little dance, right? It's all the energies are moving around and interacting in order to become themselves. It's this state of being, becoming until you are that which you really are, this becoming into the being. I feel like I'm really confusing right now. I'm so sorry. But nevertheless, let's continue. In the system, a similar fusion and blend is going on, and the separated aspects are entering into an evolutionary relationship, resulting in an eventual synthesis of appearance and quality, and then of quality and purpose. It might be noted here that the hierarchy as a whole is distinguished by the sign O.O, and the new group of world servers by the sign O.O. Again, all it's doing is trying to explain and the unevolved masses by O.O. How aware are you of who you are, as an individual and as everything? How aware are you of that? And during those different levels of career of the monad, you have different associations with different parts. You're moving on this different scale, and you identify less and less with the appearance until you can then unify back into encompassing all of it. So I know that I am this false self, but I know that I'm also so much more. Okay, that's the monad. Forget not that in all three groups, as in nature, there are the intermediate stages composed of those who are on their way to a transitional accomplishment. The work before all students of this treatise on the seven rays is the fusion of quality and appearance, and therefore they need to study the nature of that quality in order to produce a true appearance. So again, that's where you get your purpose. In the ancient rules given to mystics in Atlantean times, we find these words. Let the disciple know, this quotes, let the disciple know the nature of his Lord of love. 7, the aspects of the love of God. 7, the colors of that manifesting one. 7-fold the work. 7, the energies, and 7-fold the path back to the center of peace. Let the disciple live in love and love in life. In those olden days, no thought of purpose entered the minds of men, for the race was not mental, nor was it intended so to be. The emphasis was laid upon the quality of the appearance in all preparation for initiation, and the highest initiate of that time endeavored to express only the quality of God's love. So that was the highest point of their consciousness at that time. Since we're learning about how the seven rays influence humanity throughout evolution, we're learning that the different energies of the planets and all that stuff, it's all because everything is in its place. We're all culminating to this big grand crescendo of what's going on right now in 2020. But that's not all it is. This is just a stage, a blip on the cosmic screen of what's going to happen. You have to understand how all that's going on now, this is what we're talking about. So it's zooming big picture. Big picture. Everything that's going on now is a precipice for, it's a stage, it's a jumping off point for what's to come. And it's aligning with the evolution of consciousness. So back then, men had no thought of purpose. Their goal at their time was to achieve a level of expressing God's love. That's why there were so many devout religious people. And that's why this book describes that ray of that devout, loving service to a religion and that allegiance to that is kind of dissipating because the people of that generation are passing on, and the new generations that are coming are not by an accident more open to exploring different religions and understanding different aspects of consciousness and spirituality, and understanding things that are not so rigid and boxed in. They're more open and all-encompassing, right? And so they're also on this path of becoming I just went somewhere and I just left. Bringing it back in. So, yes, the rays, as it evolves in harmony with what's going on in society. We're in a pivotal time, but it's also lining up with the Age of Aquarius, which is supposed to be the age of spiritual enlightenment. People, becoming free. And how does that happen? Unless we become aware of our freedom, our innate freedom, the ability to not be controlled or contained or manipulated or coerced or all of these things. So all this stuff is building up and all this angst, but they would have you believe that this is it, right? This is the end of the world. And then spirituality would have you believe that this is the beginning. It's the opening of the psyche, of the consciousness, of the ability to understand your faculties and your ability to create and to recreate your reality and what is outpictured. So, the energies and the planets and everything is really helping to usher through and really drive this home. Whereas, so our ability, our consciousness, our goal in consciousness is to understand our purpose for being born, to incarnate during this time specifically. You didn't incarnate during the dark age before, where the goal was just to express God's love. You incarnated now, where we're taking that a step further, where now we're becoming aware of our mental faculties. Law of attraction, how thoughts create our reality. And then you have to take responsibility for that. So, okay, so how have I surrendered myself to some other thinkers? And not thinking myself? Ayn Rand does some great work in this field of talking about the thinkers versus the people who just consume and suck up, the reality and just live, like automatons. And so consciousness, so that's conscious and unconscious. I'm going to keep reading because it's already 34 minutes. I think you get me. I hope so. The plan So let's just do that again. In those olden days, no thought of purpose entered into the minds of men, for the race was not mental, nor was it intended so to be. The emphasis was laid upon the quality of the appearance in all preparation for initiation, and the highest initiate of that time endeavored to express only the quality of God's love. The plan was the great mystery. The Christ, cosmic and individual, was sensed and known, but purpose was as yet veiled and unrevealed. The noble eightfold path was not known, and only 7 steps into the temple were seen. With the coming in of the Aryan race, the purpose and the plan began to be revealed. Only when the appearance is beginning to be dominated by quality and consciousness is expressing itself in directed awareness through the form is the purpose dimly sensed. So even now, we're only scraping the surface of what our purpose is, right? So generations to follow. And the whole goal is the evolution of consciousness, right? Stepping back up to itself. So we came from this unawareness of who we are, what we are here to do. Our only goal was then to express God's love, to be good unto other people, to understand how helping and doing the right thing was good. But they gave you that fruit, dangled carrot at the end of the was so that you can get into heaven, right? Be good so you can get into heaven. Our consciousness is now saying, okay, we understand that, but then we're like, I need proof, right? How do I know that there's a heaven? So then there's these people, they've broken away from that. But what it's done is freed us up to have appreciation of all religions and to understand, hey, maybe there's some fruit in being good within this life, actually for the purpose of being good within this life. And how is that a factor? Because how I do what I do and how I think creates this reality. I share a part in what's going on right now. It's not just about the afterlife, right? And then there's that ancient Egyptian that practiced the idea of the ceremony for the dead, where they weigh your heart on the scale against the feather of truth, right? If your heart is heavier than the feather, then you don't make it into the afterlife. So this was this whole thing. There's these whole concepts of how heavy are you? How dense are you? How much did you fall asleep? And how much were you light when times would have you be heavy? It's all, Savan Bomar talks about this. He had this epiphany when he was on some fun substances that helped him to understand 2020. And he was like, if you have too much weight, then you have to wait, right? That's literally what he was told by this being, this spiritual being, was if you have too much weight, then you're going to have to wait. You need to be light right now, where everything is turning into light. You also need to be light in your spirit, because that's the creator essence. That's where you can create from, where you're not bogged down and told that you have to just receive what is coming to you, right? Anyways, moving right along. It's almost done. I seek in various ways to convey through the symbol of words the significance of the soul. The soul is therefore the Son of God, the product of the marriage of spirit and matter. The soul is an expression of the mind of God, for mind and intellect are terms expressing the cosmic principle of intelligent love, a love which produces an appearance through the nature of mind, and thus is the builder of the separate forms or appearances. Again, so that's what we create from. When you get light, love, that frequency, if you put that playlist where you're going up to, that highest frequency of all is love. So that's why they put certain things in music to make you feel really dark and heavy and dense. And that's what's really cool, right? It's black nails and black lipstick and, coffin nails and pointy, sharp, everything. No disrespect to anyone that likes it, but just understand the rituals and the psyche and what they're doing to your psyche. We are alive and living and light. And when you do that, you can reshape and create and become the builder of the separate forms or appearances. That which you see outward is malleable. You can influence it if you're aware. The soul also, through the quality of love, produces the fusion of appearance and of quality, of awareness and of form. And that's the end of this section, but I feel like I just really took it high and dropped it low. So I wanted to bring it back to this part early on where the book gives a really amazing example of how this works for humans in a cellular level, so you can understand what I'm talking about. As above, so below. We're talking about the planets are doing this whole dance, humans are doing this whole dance, and what is it all for? That's what our work is, our consciousness, where we're going to arrive at. Our great culmination is understanding purpose, giving meaning to everything instead of it being so arbitrary and pointless. It's not just about getting into heaven. It's not just about, the promise of what's going to happen to you in the afterlife. Like, there's meaning, and this is to explore that meaning, as above, so below. So this idea can best be apprehended if one remembers that every human being is, in his turn, an aggregate of atoms and cells built into form and having scattered throughout that form organs and centers of differentiated life, which function in rhythm and relation, but which have varying influences and differing purposes. We all have different purposes, just like every atom and cell within our body has different purposes. These aggregated and animated forms present an appearance of an entity or central life which is characterized by its own quality and which functions according to the point in evolution. We all move in order, in alignment with whatever evolutionary phase we're at right now, and which functions according to its point in evolution, thus making an impress by its radiation and life upon every atom and cell and organism within the radius of immediate influence, and also upon every other human being contacted. We're doing this for a reason, to impact whoever we're around, whoever we can touch. That's why it doesn't matter if it's like one person out there or if it's 100,000 people out there. Your goal is to awaken as a soul and to radiate and touch whatever you can touch in this realm, to be, to exist. We're in this state of being. You're becoming who you are so that you can be who you are. And then you're going to touch and you're going to leave an impress or an imprint upon this existence to play your part in the unfolding. That's why you incarnated. We're learning about meaning and purpose. Make it make sense, right? So you influence every other human being who you contact. Man is a psychic entity, a life, who through radiatory influence has built a form, colored it with his own psychic quality, and thus presented an appearance to the environing world which will persist for as long a time as he lives in form. And this last quote here, we are lives making an appearance, expressing quality, and slowly becoming aware of the process and the objective as our consciousness becomes more like that of divinity itself. 43 minutes. I'm going to read our handy dandy great invocation. Thank you for watching. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ consciousness return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. And from the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And she's out in 45 minutes. I hope you have a wonderful evening, night, day, wherever you are. And deal with this full moon in the best way your creator being can come up with. Find a way to express yourself and regain control of your energy and your experience. That's all I got. I will see you next time with the third definition of the soul, which is a longer one. So I'm going to have to break that up into a couple of videos for sure. The third definition of the soul is that it is light and energy. So that will be the next one. All right. Take care.